Get up. Oh, wow. How are you today?
Good.
You look lovely.
Thank you.
You really do look nice.
Thank you.
Your hair's looking good. Well, we're back out here at kind of our spot out in the Hope Haven.
Yeah.
Except for different frame this time. Got this smaller, I don't know if this was, I think this might have been a library at one point. Back when this was,
Is there writing on it?
No.
Because usually
Yeah,
each building had a writing.
It's kind of got that library feel, though, to it. Anyway, though, I just wanted to take some time to share with you this story.
Okay, cool. Tell me the story.
And then we could kind of just discuss your thoughts on the concept of the story. But I call this the Super Mario Brothers story. I just made that up. But no, I was just thinking the other day, really, just kind of about timing, because like everybody's trying to get stuff done. We're all trying to accomplish goals,
Right.
and we all have this idea of the time frame we want to get it done in.
Mm-hmm.
Yet because sometimes as people we're hard-headed and we refuse sometimes to learn from mistakes, we find ourselves kind of going around in circle, not making a lot of progress sometimes because, like I said, we just refuse to learn from those mistakes and figure out that maybe this wasn't just the right time, that there's something to timing in our lives. And so anyway, I was thinking about back in the day, I guess this must have been probably 1986 or so.
Okay.
Nintendo, the not the Super Nintendo, the regular Nintendo had come out, and the game that it came with two games. It came with Super Mario Brothers, and it came with Duck Hunt, which was where you hunted the ducks.
I remember that.
Yeah.
We actually had it.
And so it had just come out, so it was right around that time frame, 85, 86. And I didn't have one, but my cousin had one. My cousin Anna. Mm-hmm. Look at this kid. I mean, he could be running anywhere, doing anything, and he's right here getting his butt scratched. And so my cousin Anna got one, and she's about a year and a half younger than me. Now the sad caveat to the story is she passed away, a couple years ago?
Probably like 5 years ago.
5 years ago, yeah, 4 or 5 years ago. In fact, we're right near the anniversary of right when she passed away.
I think she passed away in July.
And then her birthday was May 16th or May 17th. So that's coming up. So that's a sad caveat to the story, but anyway, she had received this Nintendo, and so I wanted to play this Nintendo as well because I didn't have one. And so I go over to her house, to my aunt's house, where she lived, and we go where she had her Nintendo set up. Well, she had it in her room at the time, and a tiny little TV. Now it's a 12-inch TV. It was like this big, and it was one of those, real light tabletop TVs. It was in color, which was nice because I had one, but it was black and white. So like she had a color one, that was cool. The problem was, there was a problem either with the TV or with maybe the cables that she was using. I don't remember what it was, but what happened was it didn't allow the video game to fill up the whole screen, and so it only would be about this much on a screen. So it showed you half of the video game, and so like when you started playing it, all you could see was little Mario's eyes, like on the bottom like this. And then you could see those little like tubes that he would jump in. You could see the tube. You could see some clouds and stuff. But you could just barely see little Mario's head. And he'd be like, doot, doot, doot. And then, and I was like, what is this? Like, where's the rest of the picture? And she's like, I don't know. It's just not working right. We messed with it. And she's like, we can't get it working. And I'm like, well, how are you going to play this game? Like, I didn't want to play, And she was like, no, it's cool. It's good. And so she goes to start playing the game, and no, she hands it to me first, and I play it, and right away I get killed because I can't see the bad guys. Mm-hmm. I can see like the tops of the little mushrooms maybe, but I didn't know. And then there's like missing holes, that you could fall into, And so those little turtles running around, they get you, and you can barely see them. And so, like, right away, I die. And I try it again, and, like, my Mario guy dies. And I'm like, this is dumb. I can't play, you know? And she's like, well, let me show you. So she grabs the remote, and she starts, I mean, dude, she's, like, intently playing this game. And she's working it, and she's like, doot, 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 jumping all over the place. And maybe it wasn't on the first try, but eventually she completed the first level. And I was just like, what in the, you know, and I was just totally blown away. So what she did was she didn't have the whole picture, but she used what she had, and she figured out the timing of when those little bad guys were going to pop up.
Well,
She figured out the timing based upon the locations of, like, the clouds and other things, where the holes were. And so she played the whole first level based upon timing. She just figured it out,
right.
even though she couldn't actually see everything. And so, you know, I was thinking about that the other night because, you know, we've got a lot of plans. There's a lot of things that we like to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot, I'm sure we're not the only ones, right? There's a lot of things all of us would like to do, you know. And I'm thinking, like, how many times have we figured, you know, tried to map stuff out, you know, and we have a lot of, you know, of the picture to work with most of the time. But we still don't figure out the timing properly. And so we either prematurely get into something or we lag behind in those things. And then when it doesn't hit together and it doesn't work, like, we're all surprised.
Right.
You know, we're all surprised about it. You know, but I think that there's something to that Mario story, because I think if, like, we can, you know, continue to, we make, you know, wise plans the best that we can. Obviously, we base our plans, you know, and we revolve our life around our faith, you know. We revolve around what the Word of God says, you know, the principles of what the Word says. But even in a practical sense, like, you know, just, there's a pattern to life if you really look at it. She figured out the pattern in that first level, and she was able to beat it. And then she was working on the second one.
Wow.
You know? And I was like, yeah, mercy. I was sitting there, and so I was encouraged when watching her do that, so I tried again, and right away, doop, doop, I'm just dead. You know, I needed more time to figure out the pattern.
Yeah.
She put in the time, and she found success. You know, I don't know, I just think there's something there to us as, you know, as people in the, you know, trying to make a way through life. You know, we're working, we're raising families, we're serving in our churches, or, you know, you've got extracurricular activities, you're trying to raise your kids right. You know, and I think sometimes, like, we can really lose sight that there's really a pattern to things. There really is. And if you stand back and look at it, you can figure out the pattern. Like, there's not a whole lot happening in life that really, really is much of a surprise to most people if you really think about it. You know? And so I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my thought process right now, is just, you know, like, I don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. I don't want to set myself up just to fall in another hole, you know, and I don't want to ignore the fact that, like, even though, like, things are happening to us that are new, it's still, there's a pattern involved still, you know what I mean? It's a lot of things that continue to repeat over and over. And if we can figure the pattern out, if we can learn the proper timing, I think we could see a lot more success and stuff, you know?
I think, like, it's the same thing with a job. If you've had, like, you've worked in 2 or 3 different places, you pretty much have the same setup of people, personalities, and characters at every job.
Right.
Or in some cases, the work itself might be a little different in regards to what you're doing, but the people that make up the environment remains the same. It doesn't change. And it's like the same thing too. It's like you can set up yourself for failure when you come across the same patterns and the same personalities in these individuals. So what I've gotten to learn and to do is that, you know, just learn from prior personalities on the workplace, and just better set myself up you know, to do my job, one, but also to, you know, not fall into the trap of the same personality that's at the workplace. You just learn how to, there's certain things you listen to, there's certain things that you know, you shut off. There's certain things that you take a little step further in being helpful, and you know how far you're gonna go in a conversation or in a relationship, in building a relationship with people. And then in another sense, there's certain things that you just, you know, you drop down to. So in regards to like that, you know, little, you know, Mario game that you were sharing, you know, about your childhood, I think it is the same thing in life too as well. You know, we really don't see the full picture until like we're pretty much later on in life if we take the right steps.
Okay.
You know, I think it connects. The people we move, the places that we go, the places that we live, it all connects, because I believe that the Lord, he designs everything to connect. And I think it plays a lot with just, you know, trusting the process of time.
Right.
You know, trusting that timeline. Because
because I mean, it's like everything takes some type of, you know, there's a process to everything. And so like,
stay here.
pup,
Stay here.
calm yourself. It's a little kid. I mean, you've heard the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, you know, and so that basically applies to everything in life. Like nothing really is gonna, you know, the good things don't happen usually fast, you know. It takes time to build relationships, and like I said, even at the workplace, it takes time to develop a good name and a good reputation at work, especially when you're in a culture that, you know, everybody's trying to do the least amount of work and get the most amount of pay, you know, and then you come along and you're actually doing a good job and, you know, have integrity, and people don't really like that sometimes because it makes them look bad, you know. But eventually, given enough time, like I've seen those things turn around for good in the workplace, you know. And but yeah, there's a time. I mean, I think about Ecclesiastes tells us that there's a time and a season for everything under the sun. And so like, I think it's just like, I think at my age now, you know, 48 coming close to 50, it's like, and I think I'm finally, I mean, I say this, so like getting to a spot where I just don't feel the need to rush anything, you know. Like, even though like in the natural sense, people might say, well, you're getting older, you need to do a bunch of stuff before it's quote unquote too late. But I just choose to look at it the opposite, which is, no, you know, I'd rather wait for the right time, just like that Mario game, so I don't accidentally fall into a hole.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because what I've gathered over 48 years is patience that I didn't have 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, an attitude I didn't have 20 years ago of just gratefulness.
Yeah.
Of things that have happened in my life. And so, I mean, what about yourself? Because like, I mean, most people look at you and they think that you're pretty calm, pretty well put together. But am I the only one that's ever struggled with the concept of just having to wait for the right time?
Well, in regards to that, I'm a patient person. I think I am. I think I've learned that because there were things that I waited for in my early stages, like in my teens, right? And I think what's really developed in me is just that, you know, because I did go through the, like, you know, procrastination, when is the petty cries. So I kind of grew out of that. Because some things I believe that you just need to just grow up and just grow out of it. Because you're not seeing the results by having a bad attitude. So or just being all petty and, you know, like, man, like, and just because it just brings a negative feeling or influence, or, you know, stirring up. And it, you know, hey, who wants to be a negative Nancy? Who wants to be, you know, the one that you're around and there's nothing good that comes out, even when you're not receiving or having things, you know, played out the way in which you intended. So I think for my life and for where I am, I've just learned how to wait because I did see the benefits of wait. It's not a fun process, but the result is always it's always lasting. It's always good. And like one example would be, you know, being prayerful and waiting for a husband and being married. When I saw it, you know, it was happening for everybody, and they were married, they were being married, and, you know, wow, they're having this awesome life, you know. It was well into my late 30s that I got married, and I never even thought it would happen. But I'm thankful that I waited, because, you know, the Lord, he's gifted me a spouse, you know, that complements, and we work together in unity.
Well, I mean, for those who maybe might just stumble across this conversation, you were how old when we got married?
I was 33.
33. So, I mean, you know, honestly, by today's modern standards, that's probably not late. But coming from more of a traditional background, that was pretty late, you know, because
it's kind of like a waiting process. I mean, I'm the last in my family, so everybody else had got married.
Last out of 5, so yeah.
And then
everybody's married and already has kids.
Yeah. And then I had like even, you know, high school friends. A lot of people were married and, you know, well into, like, you know, life, moving on, and I'm just like, whoa, like what's gonna become of my life? But I mean,
this guy right here.
You know, I think that's where my personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ came into place. It's because, you know, living for Him, getting to know Him and serving Him was much more valuable and precious to me than, you know, trying to, you know, get something, prematurely get something, obtain something.
I mean, that's a good point, though, because I think to really be able to grow in patience, there has to be a bigger I guess a bigger factor in that than just what you're trying to get. And so, like you said, even for myself, because I was 40 when we got married, now I struggled with it big time. I mean, I wanted to be married, you know, and so, you know, I mean, I was not successful in my waiting or figuring out the timing, you know. I was ready to just run that game with only half the screen and fall in the holes, and I did a little bit, you know, and so, but yeah, no, when you have a bigger conviction in your life, it makes the other ones more manageable. And for us, obviously, it's our faith, you know. It's because, you know, I'm a pastor, you know, she co-pastors with me, and so, like, we are, you know, our ultimate desire is to please God, and so that helps everything else kind of find a more proper place, you know, because at the end of the day, if we're waiting for certain things, or if we're trying to figure out when the time is for certain things, are we supposed to move here, do that, have this, you know, well, at the end of the day, we can trail it back to, hey, are we doing the right thing by God, by the Lord, you know. And so, like, I think it has to be that way, really, for us. And so, but it just helps. It helps when there's something bigger than just that accomplishment, you know, because the accomplishments in and of themselves, never really scratch the itch, you know. Yeah,
and I think, you know, you gotta compare, you know, your apples and your oranges, right? You gotta compare those serving the Lord and those are not, and you just look right within reach, and, you know, if those are not serving the Lord, their life doesn't teach you something, then you know, you look at the ones that are living for the Lord, man, that should move you, that should compel you to seek after the Lord, and you know, and get to know Him more, because you know, and I guess that's how I made my comparisons. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it is so the results of, you know, family members, friends that just, you know, half-heartedly serve the Lord. But then I saw something different with, you know, those that, you know, surrendered, submitted, and fully served the Lord. And it's like, man, like, well, which way do you go? And man, obviously you're gonna choose that path, that righteous path. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a choice, you know, and so like, yeah. Now, sometimes we may be in the middle of something, and it's like that Mario game where it's like you can only see half the screen, you know. But I think that's where, like I said, having that, you know, that faith comes into play for us, because sometimes it feels like we can only see a portion of the picture, but we know that we're in the right hands. You know, we know
Yeah.
that the Lord's got us in those things, and He's able to navigate us through those
Yeah.
pitfalls or those stumbling blocks. And so, yeah, you may fall, but you're able to get back
Yeah.
up. You know,
I mean,
and so that's
and the word-
my encouragement.
The word reminds us that, you know, He's faithful to that which we commit to Him. He's faithful in that, you know,
Yep.
to bring it to pass. You know, so yeah.
Amen. Well, that was, you know, my thoughts pertaining to Super Mario Brothers, and really the memory of my cousin Anna. Like I said, it's coming up on her, what would have been her 46th birthday. And so, you know, yeah, just reflecting on that, and man, just like yesterday, we were kids playing that game. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I think
it went by fast.
people take for granted time, but time is a very valuable resource. Rather than, you know, you compare time with money, and I mean, I would choose time, because, you know, time would tell a lot. You know, you just gotta wait, and you're gonna see the harvest, or you're just gonna see the famine in your life, in your own life. So, you know, it's kind of like what you spend your time in, and that's what you've invested. That's what you've really purchased.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think at the end of any of our lives we're gonna think like, oh man, I wish I would have worked another day. You know, I wish I would have put in some more hours at the office. No, you're gonna think like,
No,
man, I wish I would have spent more time with my grandpa. You know,
Yeah.
I wish I would have said something to that neighbor. You know.
Yeah, I wish I probably read the Word, pick up the Bible, read the Word, worship, go to church, and
Yep.
stop complaining, and, you know, yeah.
Anyway, we better get it moving. Get this little kid something to snack on, because he wouldn't leave us alone while we're eating our lunch. So, all right. Until next time. Oh, wow. Can't eat grass, okay? It's Roy and Kim, real life. We'll catch you next time. Say bye, Bucky.